Hey everybody, welcome to the Chit Chat with Happy Jack podcast. I'm your host, Jackie Wachter. You might know me from Fount, but I'm really excited to start my own podcast because it is something I've wanted to do for literally going on 6 years-ish. I was featured on a friend's podcast, a girl in Cleveland. Her name is Ann Richards, and she has Ann Richards Inspires. So she had me on her podcast, and oh my gosh, I had so much fun. And ever since then, it's just been something I've wanted to do. And I feel like called to do and inspired to do, but I haven't done it because I've been busy. At least that's my excuse. I've been busy with Fount and with kids. But I recently heard a Chinese proverb, and you might be familiar with this. It says, the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago, and the next best time is today. So I am living a little bit of a life of regret that I didn't start this 6 years ago when I had that urge. Oh, my Coco is going to snore. Sorry about that. But I think that the next best time is today. So I'm going to start, and I'm excited to grow with you. So my hope in this podcast is that we can grow together. And instead of a podcast, I'm calling it a joycast because I think one of the biggest wins you can have in life is to constantly be looking for the joy in life, right? So everybody's got obstacles, everybody's got things to work through, but a lot of what makes us grow and be stronger is our attitude toward those things. So I've heard a quote, and it says that 10% of life of what happens to you, and 90% of it is your reaction to it. So I really have been trying to live by that and just choosing joy in every moment, because so much of life is perspective. So that's a lot of what we're going to talk about here. And so I'm going to jump into it. So one thing is that I'm going to talk about Fount, because I love Fount like a firstborn baby. My husband and I started it almost 10 years ago together, and it has been the biggest project I've ever worked on in my life, and we love it like crazy, but it is hard. It does have challenges, but I'm going to teach you a lot of the tips and small business growth that took us from our having it in our apartment, our teeny little Cleveland Heights apartment, to growing it to a multi-7-figure business. So I'm going to share those tips to you if you are a small business owner or an entrepreneur of any type. So there's that. And then I'm going to talk to you about motherhood, because I love being a mom, but it is one of my hardest jobs. I feel like there's always things changing through every season of our kids growing up, right? And it's the one job I have that I was never trained in. So I love learning from parenting books. I think it's such a privilege we have in 2023 to learn from parenting books, right? There's so many good resources, and I've read a lot that have really helped me with my relationships with my kids. And just helping them to become really good friends. That's something we've overcome. That's an obstacle we're still working on. So I love talking about parenting tips and hacks, and like all things kids. The next thing I'm going to talk about is fashion. I love fashion. I love looking dressed for the job I want. You know, we've all heard that adage, dress for the job you want, not the job you have. And so since I was a little girl, since I was like 3, I have loved getting dressed. It's one of my favorite parts of the day. I love picking out my outfits. I think someone once told me that your body is like a palette you get to paint every day, right? So picking out an outfit really is a creative art form, and I have a lot of fun with it. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then we're also going to talk about motivation and personal growth. I have so much fun learning from other thought leaders, specifically a lot of women. I love just like listening to them and getting fired up and pumped up, and learning from their tips and tricks on how they take their game to the next level. So we're going to talk a lot about that too. So one question I get asked all the time is, how do you do it all? And the answer is that I don't do it all. And when people ask this, I just tell them, you have to pick out what's important to you and make that a priority and throw out the rest, okay? Because you can only do so much. Every human can only do so much. So you have to pick out what's your goal with your family, what's your goal at work, and what's your goal in your personal life. All these things. I literally think I even make bucket lists like each spring, summer, fall winter to make sure that I do the things I want to do with my family so I don't miss out on that time, to make every moment like feel like a priority, right? So if you only get so many Saturdays and Sundays a month with your kids, you have to make them all count. Actually, when our oldest son was having his, it's called a christening. It's like a baptism, but like when they're a baby, or like a baby dedication. That's what it was called. The pastor did this really cool thing where he had a glass jar and he was moving like marble to like another glass jar, one by one by one. And then he says, you might wonder what I'm doing. And what I'm doing is I'm moving over the marbles one by one for the weekends you have with your baby until they go off to college. And I was like, whoa. But I was so thankful for that because that was at the birth of our firstborn son. And that was in the height of us being like crazy busy with Fount. Like we were doing 52 shows a year at the beginning. We were traveling a lot. So it really stuck with me that I have to make every moment I'm with my kids count, right? So I started this system where we make a bucket list. So for summer, I'll write down like, go to the pool 6 times. I'll make 6 little check boxes. I'll be like, bike the towpath. Go to a water park, like literally write everything down. Like make sure we go to Shaker Lakes 4 times. We live right by there. And then like make a list of all the things you want to do. Some of them might be big things like take a vacation. Some things might be small like go for ice cream or I want to have bonfires in the backyard, but actually make check boxes and then check off how many times you really did it, because that is huge to know how much you're actually doing the thing you said you wanted to do. So that's a big part of being able to do it all, is keeping track of it and being intentional with your time. So with that, there's this concept called RAS. It is, I'm going to read it here because I always forget, reticular activating system. And it's so cool. It's a scientific term for basically a colander. And this colander helps you sift through important things versus non-important things. Once something becomes important to you and you flag it as a goal, you're going to think of everywhere in life that you want to pull that into your life. And then you get rid of the rest. And it's something that I've heard it's talked about, that it's almost like your brain's way of protecting you from taking on too much information, because there's so much information, especially in 2023. We're getting fed information constantly. So this RAS is there to serve you and to help you like really channel in on what you need to focus on. So anyway, it's an interesting concept that I want to learn more about. It's actually kind of new to me. So in closing for this first podcast, I want to leave you with the thought of the compound effect. So the compound effect is something I talk about in speeches I give or talks that I give. And it is essentially the same thing as compound interest in your finances. But there's an author named Darren Hardy, and he writes about the compound effect in your life. And the compound effect in your life is taking small steps in the right direction over and over and over and over again. And at the beginning, it might not feel like you're making a lot of momentum or getting a lot of momentum and progress. But the more you do it, it's going to start to like pick up energy and pick up momentum like you could never imagine. So we are in nearly year 10 of our business with Fount, and we're starting to see so much positive momentum, and it is so exciting. And that's the same thing with anything in your life. If you keep on doing it and moving in the same direction, you're going to see a lot of progress. I think about some of these Instagram girls who, I saw them posting for years and years and years, and now they're like building mansions. And it's so cool because you're like, girlfriend, you stuck with that. So I think there's something really cool about seeing other people's progress. You can't look back at someone and say, wow, look how easy that came for you, because maybe you don't know the 10 years of work that they were doing to get to that point. But to go back to that Chinese proverb, the best day to plant a tree is today, unless you did it 30 years ago. That's awesome. You'd have a big tree, but you might as well start today. So here I am starting with my podcast today, something I've wanted to do for 6 years. And really, when I think back on it, it's something I've wanted to do my whole life. Like, a podcast didn't exist, but as a little girl, if you'd ask me my dream, it was to be a talk show host. I wanted to be a talk show host. Loved the idea of Oprah. Loved her. And then when Ellen DeGeneres came out, I was like, oh my gosh, that's my dream job. Jimmy Fallon is like the king of my heart. I'm joking, but I love him. If I could be the female Jimmy Fallon, that's the dream right there. So I'm taking a baby step into that. And if you're interested in all of these things that I have to say, come and join this journey with me. We're going to learn, we're going to grow together, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm going to leave you with a closing quote that my husband loves. It is by Bill Gates, and it says, people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, and they underestimate what they can do in 10 years. So really let that sink in. I'm going to read it again. People overestimate what they can do in 1 year. Scramble around and try to get everything done in 1 year, and then underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And that's the whole compound effect right there, wrapped up into one awesome quote. So it's something I've been trying to live by, and like hold on to not giving myself too much pressure in the daily, but just showing up, taking my steps that I said I was going to take to get me to my goals. And my challenge to you today is to think of the one thing you have been wanting to start, or to think of the thing you have started and you just need to keep stepping towards, and just having faith that your compound effect is coming. All right. Thanks for joining. Bye. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in today. It means the world to me. And I would love for you to like and subscribe if you had fun with me today. And if you've got any tips or tricks, feel free to comment below. I would love to hear from you. I'm also available over at Fount Jackie and at Happy Jack Jack on Instagram. So talk to you later. Until then, I'm cheering you on and hope to see you next week again on the Happy Jack Jack podcast. Bye.